Hopefully, from doing all the exercises in the first couple lessons of this module, you've got a much better sense of what rhythms you're likely to come up against, and more importantly, how they sound and how they feel. Now, this is completely liberating. When you realize that the majority of music uses what boils down to just 5 rhythms, everything becomes so much simpler. Of course, those 5 rhythms can be put together in almost infinite different combinations, but hopefully you're seeing that playing in time, it isn't some kind of big grand challenge. All it means is playing mostly these 5 rhythms. Now, so far, we've only really played them one at a time, right? The next step, though, is to start mixing up your rhythms and getting used to switching between them. When you master this skill, you'll have no troubles playing in time, no matter what rhythms get thrown at you. Now, the exercise I want to show you now is called a table of time exercise that I learned from an amazing guitar player friend of mine who learned it from a drummer. And drummers know rhythm, right? So let's jump on in. Sound good to you? Perfect. All right. Firstly, all we're going to do is pick one note. Let's use this E right here. It's what we've been using for a lot of this set of lessons so far. So we're going to get up our drum track, just our plain old 90 beats a minute drum track. There it is. Now all we're going to do is play a full bar of each rhythm. So 1 bar of whole notes, 1 bar of half notes, bar of quarters, bar of eighth notes, and a bar of sixteenths. We'll go straight from one rhythm to the next, no break. And when we get to the sixteenths, we'll come back up from sixteenths to eighths to quarters, half notes, and whole notes. Remember, no break in between them, yeah? So there won't be a break in between rhythms when you first come across them in the real world, so we won't put a break in here right now. So let's dive right in. So first of all, we've got our whole notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3 half notes. 1, 2, 3 4 quarter notes. 1, 2, 3 eighth notes. 1, 2, 3 sixteenths. Back to eighths. Now quarters. 1, 2, 3 half notes, and finally a whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Now, if the 16th, stop there. There we go. Now, if the 16th notes are a bit too fast for you at this tempo, then feel free to use a slower track. That right hand technique will come in time, but just for right now, just use a slower track to make things easier for yourself. Now, that's our first step, working from each rhythm to the next until we've gone through all the 5 core levels of the rhythmic pyramid. Now, if you want, you can even include the hidden levels of the pyramid like I talked about in lesson 2, if you want a bit of an extra challenge. Now, this is a great first step because it's getting you used to switching between each of the different rhythms. But on the other hand, it's not particularly realistic, right? Because it's only ever on one note. How many bass lines do you know that only use one note? Probably not a lot, I imagine. So the next step is to do the same exercise, but this time change the notes you use. Now you can use any kind of note sequence that you want, but for this lesson I'm going to demonstrate with the plain old major scale, starting on that same note, on that E. Now if you're not sure how to play a major scale, I've put a video underneath this one explaining how to make one, and it's also in the PDF below this video. But if we stay on E and build our major scale, we'll have the 7th and 9th fret on the A string, the 6th, 7th and 9th fret on the D string, and the 6th, 8th and 9th fret on the G string. Just like that, nothing to it. Now there are a few different variations of this particular exercise. The first is where we'll play the whole scale each time using just one rhythm, then switching to the next. Yeah, so for our whole notes it'll sound like this. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Now obviously this one takes a fair bit of time because it's a very long note. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And come back down. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. I promise it gets more interesting. 2, 3, 4. Now no break after this. Go straight into our half notes. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, Eighth notes. Quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. After quarter notes, back down to our half notes. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back down. And the whole notes. 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. I'm sure you get the picture for the whole notes. Just goes up and down the scale. Now those sixteenths in the middle do get a bit hectic, so if you need to, once again, come down in tempo. That's totally fine. Notice how you have to change the rhythm you're using fairly quickly. If you're having trouble with this, try thinking of the new rhythm in advance. So while you're playing the quarter notes, you're thinking ahead to the eighth notes and what they sound like, what they feel like. When you're playing the eighth notes, think of the 16th notes. And do the reverse when you're going in the opposite direction. That might look like this. So if we grab up our track, I'll start at the quarter notes for this one. Track, there we go. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, I'll start at the quarters. So as I'm going through this, I'm thinking of eighth notes. I'm playing quarters, but I'm thinking and when I'm getting here, I'm thinking 16ths. Thinking of eighth notes. A little bit hard on that one. Thinking quarters. Yeah, so you always want to be thinking a little bit ahead. Obviously, it's easier the slower it is and the longer the rhythms. Half notes, 1, 2, 2, just like that. Like I said, the quick rhythms like the 8th and the 16th, you don't have a lot of time at all, so you really have to be on your game. And but it's this constant changing of rhythm is the thing that you're trying to really nail down here. Being able to hear the new rhythm in advance is super critical. That ability that you're developing by doing this exercise, that's what's going to let you hear any tricky bass lines in advance. And if you can do that, then you'll always have supreme confidence that whenever you play, whether it's in a rehearsal, a jam or a gig, any situation, you know you're going to be totally fine. Now, I said there are a few variations of this exercise, right? Well, here's the next one. Instead of doing the whole scale using just one rhythm, you'll be using just one bar of each rhythm. So one bar of a whole note, one bar of half notes, one bar of quarters, and one bar of eighths, then 16ths, and then back up the rhythmic pyramid. Now this one is trickier again because you have less time to think. So I'll use a slower track for this version of the exercise, probably the 60 beats per minute. And for this exercise, we'll just keep going up and back on the scale, up and down until it makes sense to stop. So use my 60 beats per minute. There we go. 1, 2, 3. So whole notes to start. 1, 2, 3, and then straight to half notes. 1, 2, 3, then quarters. 1, 2, 3, eighths. 1 and 2 and 3 and 16ths. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Go back down to quarters, half notes, whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half notes again. 1, 2, 3. Quarters. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eighths. 3, 4. 16ths. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to eighths, quarters, 3, 4, half notes, 2, 3, 4, whole note, 1, 2, and let's finish here on the high E, just like that, yeah? How cool is this? I love this exercise. It's a great little way to keep you on your toes because it's not nearly as regular or predictable as anything we've done before. Again, if speed is an issue for you, use one of the slower practice tracks, even slower than this one. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, you don't have to necessarily use the major scale either. You can use any sequence of notes that you like, whether that's another scale or a technique exercise you're working on. As long as you go through these rhythmic cycles the way I just showed you, you'll be well on your way to leveling up your ability to play anything in time, which is going to solidify your groove, which is the ultimate goal right now. Now, the second variation is also a much better way of mimicking the kinds of things you'll find in real songs. Of course, they won't be nearly as intense as this, hopefully. But like I said before, doing this exercise will help you so much when it comes to playing any rhythm at any time. And if you can do that, you're halfway there, and you just have to focus on making everything feel good. Now check out the PDF underneath this lesson for the exercise, plus a few extra variations that will keep you keep things interesting for ages after you've done the first few versions. And I will see you in the next lesson.